So this is my second trip and Alyssa's fourth trip on our JetBlue 25 for 25 challenge. Started off with a drive over to Tampa. Since it was only an overnight trip, we decided to try out the short-term parking over at the Tampa airport. Realistically, we should have done the long-term parking since it would save us a little money, but for $3 extra per day, I figured it was a worthwhile investment. We got our parking ticket and made our way up to our parking spot. Always remember to take a picture of where you parked. The major advantage of short-term parking at the TPA airport is that you are literally an elevator ride away from the main terminal. After about a 5-minute journey, we were well on our way to getting our tickets for the flight. Since we had so many flights on this itinerary, we actually had to go to check-in in order to get our tickets. Alyssa made sure to tell them about our 25-25 challenge.
We have our whole playbook of tickets for this trip. It was the most exciting check-in that they've ever seen. He might have been lying, but it made me feel good.
After collecting our playbook of tickets, we made our way to Terminal A. If you watched my last video, you know how much I love Terminal A. However, suffering was significantly mitigated by having my wife with me. After going through security, we made our way to Starbucks for some quick refreshment. This is a really good time to remind you to link your Starbucks and Delta accounts so that way you can earn some Delta points while you sip on your sweet, sweet cup of coffee.
Pumpkin spice.
We had a chance to sit down and sip our caffeinated beverages while we waited for our plane to board. For this first trip, we were on an Airbus A321, a little long in the tooth at 9 years old. Since our first trip was to Mexico, the name of the plane, La Vida Azul, or the Blue Life in Spanish, was very appropriate. The layout of the plane was fairly decent with a 3-3 configuration. However, one thing that I really noted was that the plane was not very well maintained, and it had definitive leftover and debris in the pockets. Unfortunately, the in-flight entertainment system was also faulty, and the Wi-Fi was not connecting. Despite all this, we had a relatively smooth flight with a very polite and attentive flight crew. One thing that really shocked me was how quick the flight was, taking only about 2 hours from boarding to landing. I'm not saying I would do this as a day trip, but a weekend trip is certainly feasible. Interestingly, about a half hour before landing, our in-flight entertainment actually turned on. I suspect that flying over a body of water affected the entertainment, so I wonder how JetBlue does it on their international routes. If you've been on one, comment below and let me know. Once we landed, we made our way towards immigration. One thing that's really important to remember is that even if you are not leaving the airport, you're still going to have to go through immigration in order to get to a connecting flight. The immigration process was very quick. However, we had a bit of a difficult time explaining to the immigration officer why we were in Cancun for a layover back to Florida.
Mexico, I'm impressed.
Alyssa and I were both really pleased at the airport, and we thought it was both very efficient and offered a lot of entertainment value for someone, even if they were just stopping by on a quick layover. After passing through the duty-free area, we made our way to the central market area in the international terminal. We really liked this feature, especially because we didn't get a chance to actually visit Cancun, but we were still able to do a little shopping. Fair warning, you will absolutely be ripped off by the prices here, but if you have nothing else to do and need to do a little shopping for kiddos at home, it's a pretty good option. We decided to try out 2 of the different lounges available at the Cancun airport. With Amex Platinum, you're able to access both the VIP lounge by Mira as well as the lounge through Priority Pass. Both lounges have something different to offer, and I went over a comparison of the 2 in a recent short. We started off in the VIP lounge by Mira. It was an overall really good experience. The bar was well stocked, and we were able to order some drinks. I started with an anejo on the rocks, while Alyssa opted for a margarita. Even though they do offer premium beverages for an additional price, I thought that the selection of the base beverages were excellent as well. The food selection was also very good, with a complimentary make-your-own taco bar. After a quick rest, we moved on to our second lounge, the lounge. Well, we made our way on the upper level of the airport. You can actually connect to both lounges via the hallway in the lower level. Unfortunately, this lounge was not quite as nice as the other, but it did offer a relatively comprehensive selection of alcoholic beverages, as well as some made-to-order items. We tried out the tacos and the chicken mole.
Chicken mole. Tastes like Fruit Loops.
After a few hours of relaxation, we unfortunately had to say goodbye to the Cancun airport and made our way to the next gate for our flight to Orlando. Alyssa was feeling pretty sprightly after our trips to the lounge.
That's why tequila's dangerous, friends.
Our next flight to Orlando was on a 24-year-old A320 named Born to be Blue. Without me knowing it, Alyssa actually upgraded our seats, and to be honest, I was pretty grateful, since we had a good bit more leg room. My dreams of watching a movie were foiled by the lack of a signal. Once again, we had a fairly smooth flight, which was made even more comfortable by the fact that my wife very cleverly booked the end two seats while leaving the middle seat unoccupied. This girl knows how to maximize her flight potential. Since we had upgraded our seats, we were entitled to up to 3 complimentary alcoholic beverages, in addition to the free cookie. I decided to go with the Jack Daniels on the rocks in order to protect my svelte figure, while Alyssa went with a much more refreshing gin and tonic. In vain, I once again tried the inflight system, which unfortunately still had no signal. Additionally, the Wi-Fi was still unable to be connected as well. This left me to be very creative with my own personal entertainment. I was getting kind of tired of the plain Biscoffs available for free, so I decided to zhuzh it up by adding it to some whiskey. So ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Whiskoff, a combination of JetBlue's whiskey and complimentary Biscoff. JetBlue, please feel free to contact me for the royalties. Miraculously, the screen worked about 10 minutes before landing, but it was limited to just cable. As we pulled into Orlando, we once again had cell reception, and we found out that our flight was going to be delayed to San Juan. Even though we were only out of the country for a few hours, we actually had to return through immigration once more.
You've arrived.
It's a long walk.
Once we got to customs, we saw an immense line. However, thanks to my wife's ingenuity once more, we had global entry.
Global entry for the win.
For the win. U.S. citizen global entry, 100% worth every freaking penny, as there was a foreign customs line for entry. Like, that was like a freaking mile long.
Since we had a lot of time to kill in the airport, we decided to check out the Plaza Premium Lounge. Even though they had a wait, we actually were able to go right in because of our Amex Platinum. The lounge was nice, but it was overcrowded and the selection of free alcohol was sadly limited compared to purchased options. We grabbed a quick shower, a bite of food, and relaxed for an hour or two before checking out the rest of the airport. The Orlando airport is actually very well appointed and has a number of interesting visual features as well as food options. One of the big things that the area offers is shopping available from the theme parks, allowing you to get a last-minute souvenir. You can tell that they put a lot of effort into making the shops visually appealing and reflective of the nature of the different parks. Both the Disney store and the Universal store are worth checking out. After doing a little window shopping, we made our way to our gate for our final flight to San Juan. This time we were flying on an 18-year-old Airbus A320 named Bravo Lima Uniform Echo. Following the theme of the day, the in-flight entertainment was once again quite glitchy. Our flight was quite smooth, and we landed at the San Juan airport at 1:40 in the morning. Tired and cranky, we staggered off the plane.
Finally made it to San Juan.
People from the back of the plane trying to get out before you. And it's just empty in the corner. Fucking gross.
We need to sleep. Good night.
We got about 2 hours of sleep in the San Juan Airport Hotel. I really wish I could recommend this hotel as it's very close to the airport. However, the facilities were far from impressive. We took about a 10-minute walk and made our way to the gate at the airport. Along the way, we got to see some people sleeping in the hallway outside of the hotel, which was probably a better idea than sleeping in the hotel, to be honest. Once we were back through security, we made our way to our gate since we didn't have much time, although we did take a quick pit stop for souvenirs. This trip we were on an 18-year-old Airbus A320 named JetBlue, or JetBlue in Pig Latin. I had to give them some credit. This was a pretty clever name. Seating was comfortable, the plane was clean, and miracle of miracles, the in-flight entertainment actually worked. We had quite a smooth ride all the way up to Fort Lauderdale, and tried to take a little bit of a nap on the airplane. After about 2 hours of flying, we arrived safe and sound in Fort Lauderdale. At this point in the trip, we were both really exhausted. We only had about 20 minutes to get to our next gate, so there was no time for coffee or breakfast, so I snacked on a crappy little power bar before we made our way back to our gate on the way to New York. We boarded our A320 named Something About Blue. Although it was 17 years old, it was obviously well taken care of and recently refurbished, so it looked pretty new. I was once again spoiled by having the ability to access the in-flight entertainment, so I chose to watch a newer movie, The Borderlands. Nothing like gratuitous violence to wake you up in the morning. Our flight was uneventful as we made our way up the East Coast on a particularly rainy and cloudy day. We got in safe and sound at LaGuardia and made our way through the airport to our final destination.
We made our way to LaGuardia, but now we have to take a taxi to JFK for the last leg of our journey.
After going through the airport, we made our way to the taxi stand, as opposed to Uber. Even though the prices were equivalent, we decided that a taxi would be a little bit more efficient, and it turned out that the price was pretty similar to what we would have paid for an Uber based on what Uber estimated. While we could have flown back to Tampa from LaGuardia, we opted to travel from JFK as it was a faster flight back to Tampa so we could see our kids a little bit sooner. Since we had a fair amount of time before our next flight, we decided instead of going directly to Terminal 5 to check out Terminal 4, which had the Amex Lounge. Unfortunately, when we got there, there was a line for the Amex Lounge. However, with Priority Pass, we were able to access the Virgin Atlantic Lounge. Even though they had stopped serving food, Alyssa enjoyed a glass of champagne and we could look over at the airport. We then tried out the Hello Sky Lounge, which, although it's a pop-up, was very nicely appointed and it did have some very good food and drink options available. The meatballs were particularly tasty. We then got a notification on our phone saying that the lounge was ready for us and we made our way in. Alyssa's been at this lounge before, so she showed me the speakeasy, and we had a quick bite to eat before grabbing a complimentary caffeinated beverage as well as a delicious espresso muffin. We exited security and made our way to the SkyTrain, which connects the different terminals at the airport. While there, we had some excellent views of the TWA airport, which Jojo and I will be staying at next week. After once again re-entering security, we made our way briskly to our terminal for the last flight of the trip. We changed it up a bit with an 1-year-old A220 this time, named Across the Blueniverse. It was a very lucky day because once again, the in-flight entertainment worked. At this point in the day, we really were very exhausted, so we tried to nap a little bit on the way back home. We arrived in the late afternoon at Tampa Airport.
We made it back to where we began. A couple more airports under our belt.
We finished this trip with 14.5 flight hours, 5 airports, 2 countries, and 3 states or territories. We look forward to flying with you next time. Make sure to like and follow.